I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room when my phone rang. It was my only daughter, Angela. Her voice sounded strange, almost cold, as she said, "Mom, we're going on a trip to Europe tomorrow. I already sold your beach house and your car. We needed the money. Bye." And she hung up, just like that. 45 years raising her, sacrificing for her, and she discarded me like garbage. But I took a deep breath and smiled, because there was something my dear daughter didn't know. My name is Antonia Brooks. I'm 71 years old, and until that moment, I thought I knew my daughter. I had become a widow 6 months ago. My husband, Robert, had passed away from a heart attack while we were eating breakfast, just as we had done every morning for 45 years. That morning, he had served me coffee with cream and toast. As always, he had kissed my forehead and said, "Good morning, my love." Those were his last words. Since then, Angela had been more present in my life, or so I believed. She came to visit 3 times a week. She helped me with the funeral arrangements and accompanied me to the grocery store. She even suggested I see a doctor for a general checkup. "Mom, you need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone," she'd say with that smile I thought was love, but now I understood was for convenience. The beach house had been our sanctuary for years. Robert and I bought it when Angela was 15, with a lot of hard work and sacrifice. Every summer we'd go there, building memories, celebrating birthdays and Christmases. Angela would bring her boyfriends, and later her husband, Edward. I would cook for everyone, clean, and do the laundry. It was our family tradition. I never thought she'd see it as just money. And the car, that old Ford pickup truck Robert cared for like his own child. He'd wash it every Sunday, change the oil religiously, and always park it in the same spot under the shade of the tree. Angela knew what that truck meant to me. It was the last thing I had left of him. His scent still lingered on the seats. When she hung up, I stayed there on that uncomfortable green plastic chair, surrounded by other sick people, and for the first time in months, I didn't cry. Something strange happened inside me, a calm I hadn't felt since Robert's death. Because in that moment, I remembered something I had completely forgotten. 3 days before he died, Robert had handed me a manila envelope. "Antonia, put this in the drawer of your dresser. If something happens to me, open it after a while, but only when you feel ready." I had put it away without much thought. After the funeral, with so much grief and so many arrangements, I simply forgot. But there it was, waiting for me at home. The nurse called me to go into the office. The doctor examined me and said I was in good health for my age, that I just needed to rest more and eat better. I nodded and smiled, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about that envelope, about the coldness in Angela's voice, and how Edward was probably behind all of it. He had never liked me. He always saw me as a nuisance. I left the office and walked slowly to the bus stop. I no longer had a car, according to Angela, but as I waited, I couldn't help but smile. There was something poetic about all of this. My daughter thought she had left me with nothing, but what she didn't know was that Robert, my dear Robert, had always been a man who planned ahead. The bus arrived, and I sat by the window. I watched the city go by. The houses, the stores, people rushing everywhere, all with their own tragedies, their own secrets. I had my own too, and I was about to discover them. When I got home, I went straight to my room. I opened the dresser drawer, and there was the manila envelope, exactly where I had left it. My hands trembled slightly as I picked it up. I could feel there were several documents inside. Robert had written my name on the front in his neat handwriting. I sat on the bed we had shared for so many years and took a deep breath. It was starting to get dark outside, and the house was filling with those familiar shadows that no longer scared me. I opened the envelope slowly, as if unwrapping a birthday gift. What I found inside would change everything. What I found in that envelope took my breath away. There were legal documents, deeds, bank certificates, and a handwritten letter from Robert. My eyes filled with tears as I read his familiar handwriting. "My dear Antonia, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Forgive me for not telling you everything while I was alive, but I wanted to protect you from worries. Over the years, I invested our savings in properties and businesses. We don't just have the beach house, we have 6 other properties, including the apartment building where Angela and Edward live. We also have shares in 3 companies that are worth more than you can imagine. You are rich, my love. You always were rich. But now you are on paper, too. My hands trembled as I looked through the documents. There were deeds to houses in different city neighborhoods, a downtown condo, a small motel on the coast, and indeed, the 20-story apartment building where my daughter lived. Robert had been the silent owner for the past 10 years, but had put everything in the name of a company I didn't know about. And according to the papers, I was the sole heiress of that company. There were also bank statements for accounts I never knew existed, with numbers that seemed unreal. Robert had been a bus driver for 40 years, but apparently he had also been a very smart investor. Every penny we saved, every sacrifice we made, he had multiplied in silence, and I never knew anything. In the letter, Robert explained that he had kept it all a secret because he didn't want me to worry about money or for Angela to know about our real financial situation. You know our daughter, Antonia. If she knew we had so much money, her attitude would change. I want her to love us for who we are, not what we have. What irony. Our daughter had left us thinking we had nothing, when in reality, we had everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked around the house, touching the old furniture and the knickknacks Angela had always criticized for being outdated. I looked at the family photos on the wall, especially the one where she was 5 years old, sitting on Robert's lap and laughing. Where did that sweet little girl go? When did she become so cold, so calculating? The next day, early in the morning, the phone rang. It was Angela again. Her voice sounded different, softer, but I had already learned to be wary of those shifts in tone. Mom, how are you? I wanted to tell you we already transferred the money from the house and the car. We deposited your share into your account. It's not much, but it'll help you live for a few months while you look for something smaller. My share? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Yes, Mom. We obviously weren't going to leave you with nothing. We gave you 30%. That's fair, right? We need the money for our investment in Europe. Edward has an incredible business opportunity over there. 30% of my own things. How generous. I see, honey. And when do you leave? This afternoon. Our bags are already packed. We'll be gone for at least 6 months, maybe more if the business goes well. But don't worry, Mom. When we get back, we'll help you find a small apartment, something that fits your needs. Fits my needs. As if she knew what my needs were. Okay, Angela, have a safe trip. Oh, Mom, I knew you'd understand. You've always been so compassionate. We love you so much. And she hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand, and for the first time in months, I laughed. I laughed like I hadn't since Robert died. The situation was so absurd, it was comical. My daughter had robbed me, kicked me out of my own house, talked to me with unbearable condescension, and all to fund a European adventure that would probably be a disaster. But what bothered me most wasn't the money. It was the ease with which she had discarded me. 45 years of my life dedicated to her, of sacrifice, of unconditional love, and she had erased me from her life with a 2-minute phone call. That was what truly hurt. I checked my bank account online. Sure enough, they had deposited an amount that probably seemed generous to them, but to me was a mockery. They had sold the beach house for much less than it was worth, likely because they needed the cash quickly, and they had sold Robert's truck for a pittance. That afternoon, from my window, I watched Angela and Edward load their suitcases into a cab. He was carrying 2 huge suitcases. She had a very expensive-looking carry-on bag. I watched them laugh, kiss, and make plans. They looked like 2 teenagers excited for an adventure. They never looked toward my window, never said goodbye. When the cab drove away, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and Robert's documents spread out on the table. I had to make some decisions. I could call a lawyer, reclaim my properties, and get back everything they had taken. But something told me there was a better way to handle this, a more educational way. I called Mr. Peterson, the lawyer who had handled Robert's affairs. He had been at the funeral, had given me his condolences, and had told me to call if I ever needed anything. Well, now I needed him. Mrs. Brooks, it's good to hear from you. How are you? I'm doing well, Mr. Peterson. I need to see you urgently. I found some documents from Robert that I don't quite understand. Of course. You can come to my office tomorrow morning. I'll be there. That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. I dreamed of Robert. He was sitting in his favorite chair reading the newspaper, just like every morning, and when he saw me, he smiled and said, "It's about time, my love. It's about time you stood up for yourself." I woke up with a strange feeling. It wasn't exactly happiness, but it wasn't the sadness I had felt for so many months either. It was something like determination. For the first time since Robert's death, I had a clear purpose. I was going to get back what was mine, but not in the way Angela expected. The next morning, I got dressed with more care than usual. I put on my wine-colored dress, the one Robert always said made me look elegant. I fixed my hair and put on a little makeup, and when I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman I hadn't seen in a long time. I saw a strong woman. Mr. Peterson's office was downtown. It was an old but elegant building with marble floors and large windows. He greeted me with a warm smile, but when I showed him the documents, his expression changed completely. "Mrs. Brooks, this is much more than I imagined. Robert was a very smart man. Look, according to these papers, you are the owner of—" "I know, Mr. Peterson, I've already reviewed them. What I need to know is what I can do legally." Mr. Peterson explained that everything was in order, that the documents were legitimate, and that I was the rightful owner of all those properties. He also confirmed something I had already suspected. The sale of the beach house was illegal because Angela had no right to sell it. "We can get the house back immediately, Mrs. Brooks, and we can also proceed with legal action against your daughter for fraud." "No, Mr. Peterson. I don't want to proceed with legal action. I want to do this another way. I want everything to remain a secret for now. Can you help me?" He looked at me with curiosity, but he nodded. "Of course. You are my client. What do you need?" "I need you to discreetly get the beach house back, do what is necessary to nullify that fraudulent sale, and I need you to help me gain real control of all my properties, especially the building where my daughter lives." "I understand. It will be a process that takes a few weeks, but it's completely feasible." "Perfect. And Mr. Peterson, I need no one to know I am behind all of this, at least for now." When I left his office, I felt as if I had woken up from a very long dream. I walked through the downtown streets, watching the people, the buildings, the life that was going on as normal. But for me, everything had changed. I had a plan. The following weeks were the strangest of my life. Officially, I was a poor widow who had been abandoned by her daughter, but in secret, I was a rich woman silently orchestrating the recovery of my assets. Mr. Peterson worked efficiently, and every few days he would call me with updates on the progress of the legal proceedings. I decided to stay in my house for the time being. It was mine, after all, although Angela probably expected me to move into a single room. Every morning I would wake up, have breakfast at the same table where Robert and I had shared so many years, and then go for a walk in the neighborhood. The neighbors would greet me with that mix of pity and curiosity they reserve for recent widows. Aurora, my lifelong neighbor, came up to me one afternoon while I was watering the plants in the front. "Antonia, dear, is it true that Angela went to Europe and left you all alone?" "Yes, Aurora. She went with Edward. They have business plans over there." "And how are you going to live, sweetie? We all know Robert didn't leave much money." "If you only knew," I thought. "Don't worry, Aurora. I'll be fine." "Do you need anything? I can bring you some food, help you with groceries?" "You're very kind, but I'm fine, really." Aurora looked at me with that expression I knew well. It was the same look I had received after the funeral, compassion mixed with a little relief that it wasn't her tragedy. "Well, you know where to find me if you need anything." These conversations were constantly repeated. The butcher, the baker, the lady at the corner store, everyone spoke to me with that soft tone they use with the unfortunate, and I would nod, smile, and thank them for their concern, but inside, a part of me enjoyed this performance. It was like living a double life. Mr. Peterson called me one Wednesday morning. "Mrs. Brooks, I have good news. I was able to nullify the sale of the beach house. The buyers didn't know the sale was fraudulent, so they got their money back without any problems. The house is yours again." "Excellent, Mr. Peterson. And the building where Angela lives?" "That one is more complicated. Technically, you've always been the owner through the company, but we need to make some administrative changes so that you have direct control. That should take another 2 weeks." "Perfect. Keep me informed." After hanging up, I sat in the kitchen with my coffee and thought about Angela. She had been in Europe for 3 weeks, and I hadn't heard anything from her. Not a call, not a message, not even a postcard. To her, I had ceased to exist the moment she got the money she needed, but I knew that was going to change soon. I decided to visit the beach house. I took the bus to the coast, the same route Robert and I had taken hundreds of times. The house was exactly as I remembered it, small, painted cream-colored, with a porch overlooking the ocean. The new owners had put some potted plants on the steps, but other than that, everything was the same. I sat on the curb across the street and looked at it for an hour. I remembered summer afternoons when Angela was little, running on the beach and building sandcastles, Robert grilling fish on the barbecue while I made salads in the kitchen, Angela bringing friends, then boyfriends, then Edward, all those happy moments that she had reduced to a simple commercial transaction. An older gentleman came out of the house and saw me sitting there. He approached me with curiosity. "Are you okay, ma'am?" "Yes, thank you. I'm just remembering. I knew the former owners." "Yes, I knew them very well. What a shame about what happened. They told us the elderly lady was very sick and needed to sell fast. We thought it was a steal, but it turns out the sale wasn't legal. We had to give the house back." "Did you know them personally?" "No. We did everything through intermediaries, but they told us the daughter was handling everything because the mother couldn't." What a sad situation. If you only knew how sad it really was, I thought. "Well, I'm glad you didn't lose your money." "Yes, luckily everything worked out well, although now we have to look for another house. We liked this one a lot." I left there with a heavy heart. It wasn't just the money that hurt. It was the ease with which Angela had lied about me. She had made up a story about my illness. She had used my supposed vulnerability to justify her actions. To her, I wasn't a person with feelings, but an obstacle that had to be removed. That night, I called Mr. Peterson again. "Mr. Peterson, I need you to help me with something else. I want to get Robert's truck back too." "That will be more difficult, Mrs. Brooks. The truck was in your name, but your daughter had a power of attorney that allowed her to sell it. How is that possible?" "Apparently, you signed that power of attorney a few months ago, after your husband's death. Don't you remember?" There it was, the moment Angela had started planning all of this. I vaguely remembered signing some papers she had brought to me, telling me they were to facilitate the funeral and inheritance arrangements. I had been so confused by grief that I signed without reading. How naive I had been. "I understand, Mr. Peterson. Is there any way to get it back?" "We can try, but it will be more complicated. We would need to prove that you signed that power of attorney under deception or coercion." "Let's do it. I want to get back everything they took from me." Over the next few weeks, I developed a strange routine. In the mornings, I was the poor widow everyone knew. I would go out to buy necessities, talk to the neighbors, and keep up appearances. But in the afternoons, I became a businesswoman. I would study Robert's documents, talk to Mr. Peterson, and plan my next move. I learned things about finance I never thought I would need to know. I discovered that Robert had been much smarter than I thought. Every one of his investments had been carefully calculated. The building where Angela lived, for example, wasn't just profitable from rent. It was in an area that was rapidly appreciating. I also discovered that Edward, Angela's husband, had a lot of debt. He had taken out loans using the apartment they lived in as collateral, not knowing he wasn't the real owner. When the banks figured this out, he was going to be in serious trouble. Mr. Peterson called me one Friday with important news. "Mrs. Brooks, we've finished all the paperwork. You now have total control of all your properties. I also got Robert's truck back." The buyer turned out to be an acquaintance of mine, and when I explained the situation, he agreed to return it in exchange for a small compensation. "Excellent work, Mr. Peterson. Now I need you to help me with one more thing. I want you to send a letter to my daughter." "What kind of letter?" "An eviction notice." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Mrs. Brooks, are you sure you want to do this?" "Completely sure. She decided I wasn't important in her life. Now she's going to find out how important I really am." "I understand. Do you want me to send it to Europe?" "No. I want you to give it to her when she gets back. I have a feeling it's going to be very soon." I wasn't wrong. That same afternoon, Aurora came running to my house with fresh neighborhood news. "Antonia, did you know that Edward is in trouble with the bank? My brother-in-law who works there told me they're investigating some loans he took out using the apartment they live in as collateral, but it turns out the apartment isn't his." "Really?" "Yes. And it seems Angela didn't know anything. They're saying she's going to have to come back from Europe to sort out this mess. What a complicated situation." "Yes, and the worst part is, apparently, Edward lied to her about the business in Europe. There was no business. He just wanted to escape the debts he had here." Perfect. Everything was working out exactly as I had expected. Angela had trusted Edward, had sacrificed her relationship with me for him, and now she was discovering that he wasn't the man she thought he was. That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and looked at the stars. Robert used to say that the stars were the souls of people who had lived a full life, watching over their families from the sky. If that was true, then he was up there, watching his plan unfold perfectly. "Thank you, my love," I said to the sky. "Thank you for taking care of me, even after your death." The next day, Mr. Peterson called me early. "Mrs. Brooks, I have some news. Your daughter just arrived in the country. She's at the airport alone." "Alone?" "Yes, apparently Edward stayed in Europe. There are rumors they had a very big fight." "I see. Did you send the letter?" "I'm going to send it today. She should receive it tomorrow." I hung up the phone and stood there in the kitchen, feeling a mix of nervousness and anticipation. After so many weeks of silent planning, the moment for the first real move had finally arrived. Angela was about to discover that her mother was not the defenseless victim she believed. Angela arrived at her apartment on Tuesday night. I knew this because Aurora, who seemed to have informants throughout the neighborhood, came to tell me the next day. "Antonia, your daughter came back last night. I saw her go in with one suitcase, but she looked terrible, pale, with dark circles under her eyes, as if she had been crying the whole flight. Alone, completely alone. And something strange, Antonia, when the doorman asked her for the keys, she didn't have them. She had to ask the superintendent to let her in with the emergency copy." Interesting. Edward had the keys, which meant he had probably decided not to come back. Or maybe Angela had discovered something about him and had fled. In any case, my daughter was back, and very soon she would receive my little welcome gift. Mr. Peterson called me that same afternoon. "Mrs. Brooks, the letter was delivered an hour ago. The doorman confirmed that your daughter received it in person." "Perfect. How long did we give her?" 30 days to vacate the apartment as per legal standards. "But Mrs. Brooks, are you sure you want to do this? She is your daughter, after all." "Mr. Peterson, my daughter kicked me out of my own house with a 2-minute phone call. She sold my things without asking. She treated me like garbage. Now she's going to learn that actions have consequences." "I understand. I just wanted to make sure you had considered all the implications." "I have considered them, Mr. Peterson. All of them." That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake imagining Angela's face when she read the letter. The initial confusion, then the disbelief, then the panic. She would probably think it was a mistake, that someone was trying to scam her. But when she called to verify, she would discover that everything was completely legal. The next day, As if she had been waiting for my call, the phone rang at 8 in the morning. It was Angela, and her voice sounded desperate. "Mom, I need to talk to you urgently." "Good morning, honey. How was Europe?" "Mom, I don't have time for that right now. I received a very strange letter yesterday. It says I have to vacate my apartment in 30 days. It must be a mistake, right? Do you know anything about this?" "An eviction notice. How strange. From whom?" "From a company I've never heard of. It's called— Wait, let me find the letter. Robert Investments, Inc. Do you know this company?" Robert had used his own name for the company. How poetic. "No, honey, I've never heard that name." "Are you sure the letter is legitimate?" "That's what I want to find out. Mom, I need you to help me. I don't know what to do. Edward left me in Europe. He ran off with another woman, and now I come back to this. I don't understand what's happening." There was the confirmation. Edward had abandoned her, probably when the money ran out, or when he realized that the legal problems at home were more serious than he thought. Poor Angela. She had sacrificed her family for a worthless man. "I'm so sorry, honey. Where are you now?" "I'm in the apartment, but I don't know for how long. Mom, can I come see you? I need to talk to someone. I don't have anyone else." The irony was perfect. Now that she was left without the man for whom she had abandoned me, she remembered she had a mother. "Of course, honey. Come over whenever you want." "I'm on my way." I hung up the phone and looked at myself in the mirror. I had to be perfect for this performance. I put on my most conservative gray dress, tied my hair in a simple bun, and practiced my expression of a worried but resigned mother. When Angela arrived, she would see exactly what she expected to see: a poor, vulnerable widow who had been abandoned by her own daughter. Angela arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was surprised at how bad she looked. She had lost weight, had deep circles under her eyes, and her expensive clothes looked wrinkled and unkempt. Her eyes were red from crying. "Mom," she said, and for a moment I thought she was going to hug me, but she stopped, as if she suddenly remembered how things had ended between us. "Come in, honey. Do you want some coffee?" "Yes, please." We sat in the kitchen, at the same table where I had read Robert's documents weeks ago. Angela looked small in that chair, lost, just like when she was a child, and came to tell me about her school problems. "Mom, I'm so sorry for the way I left. I know I didn't treat you well." "It's in the past, honey." "No, it's not. I treated you badly. I said horrible things, and now—" her voice broke— "now I have no one." "What happened with Edward?" "He left with a 25-year-old hotel waitress in Paris. It turns out there was never any business in Europe. It was all a lie. He just wanted to escape the debts he had here and use the money from the sale of your house to fund his adventure." "All the debts?" "Yes, Mom, so many debts. It seems he had been taking out loans for years, using the apartment we lived in as collateral. But now I find out he wasn't the owner of the apartment." "How is that possible?" Here was my opportunity. "I don't know, honey. Property matters are very complicated. The problem is that now the banks are coming after me for his debts. They say since we were married, I'm also responsible. And on top of that, this eviction notice. Mom, I don't know what to do. I don't have money. I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to live." She started to cry, real tears of genuine desperation. And for a moment, my mother's heart softened. I wanted to hug her, console her, tell her everything would be okay. But then I remembered the coldness in her voice when she called me from the doctor's office, the ease with which she had discarded me, the way she had talked to me as if I were a burden. "Did you talk to a lawyer about the letter?" "I don't have money for a lawyer, Mom. We spent all the money in Europe. Edward took what little was left when he ran off with that woman." "So what are you going to do?" "I don't know. I thought maybe I could stay with you for a while, just until I find a job and can get a small place to live." There was the question I had been waiting for. After kicking me out of my own house, after selling my things, after treating me like garbage, she now wanted me to rescue her. She wanted the poor widow she had created to save her from the consequences of her own actions. "Of course, honey. This will always be your home." Angela looked at me with surprise, as if she hadn't expected it to be so easy. "Really, Mom, after everything that happened?" "You are my daughter, Angela. That will never change." She got up, and this time she hugged me. It was a desperate hug, from someone drowning and clinging to the only thing they can find. I hugged her back too, but not with the unconditional love from before. Now there was calculation in my embrace. Strategy. "Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll find a job soon. I won't be a burden." "Don't worry about that now. Rest, recover, and then we'll see what your options are." Angela left that afternoon to get some things from her apartment. I stayed in the kitchen, thinking about how easy it had been. She had come to me exactly as I had planned, broken, desperate, with no options, and best of all, she suspected nothing. To her, I was still the poor, abandoned mother who needed her compassion. But this was only the first part of my plan. Having her live with me would give me the perfect opportunity for the next phase. I was going to let her settle in, feel safe, and believe she had found a refuge in my house. And then, when she least expected it, I was going to teach her the difference between being poor by choice and being poor by consequence. That night, I called Mr. Peterson. "Mr. Peterson, I need you to do something else for me." "Tell me, Mrs. Brooks." "I want you to investigate Edward's debts. I want to know exactly how much he owes, to whom, and what legal options I have to separate them from my daughter." "That will take time, but it's feasible." "Perfect. And Mr. Peterson, I want you to keep this in absolute secret. No one can know I am behind this investigation." "Of course, Mrs. Brooks. May I ask what your final plan is?" "My plan, Mr. Peterson, is very simple. I'm going to save my daughter, but first, she has to understand what it truly means to hit rock bottom." When I hung up, I poured myself a glass of the wine Robert had been saving for special occasions. It had been a long time since I'd had a special occasion like this one. The game had begun, and for the first time in months, I had all the good cards in my hand. Angela moved into my house the next day. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box, all that was left of her previous life. I watched her unpack in her old room, the same one she had slept in during her teenage years, and I could see the humiliation in every one of her movements. She had gone from living in a luxury condo to taking refuge in her childhood bedroom. "Mom, I found this in the apartment," she said, showing me a manila envelope. "It was among Edward's things. It has your name on it. It was another one of Robert's envelopes." My heart sped up, but I kept my composure. "My name? How strange." "Yes, look." She showed me the envelope. Indeed, it had my name written on it in Robert's handwriting, but this envelope was different from the one I had found in my dresser. This one was smaller, newer. "Maybe Edward found it among Dad's things when he died and forgot to give it to me," Angela said. "It's possible. Can I see it?" I opened the envelope in her presence. Inside was a short letter and a small key. The letter said, "Antonia, if you are reading this after having received the main envelope, it means our daughter is going through a difficult time. This key opens a safety deposit box at the Central Bank, downtown branch. The number is 247. There is something there that can help you help her, but use it wisely. With eternal love, Robert." Angela read the letter over my shoulder. A safety deposit box? Dad had a safety deposit box? I had no idea. "I didn't either," I lied. "Your father never told me about this. Do you think we should go see what's in there?" "I don't know, honey. Maybe it's better to leave things as they are." "But Mom, maybe there's something important in there, documents, or, I don't know, maybe something valuable that can help us." The desperation in her voice was palpable. Angela was clinging to any possibility of finding a way out of her situation, and I was going to let her cling a little longer before I showed her the complete reality. "Okay," I said after a calculated pause. "We can go tomorrow." That night, Angela and I had dinner together for the first time in months. She had cooked, trying to be useful, but the food tasted of guilt and desperation. She told me more details about what had happened in Europe, and each story was worse than the last. Edward lied about everything, Mom, not just the business, but the debts, too. I thought he only owed a little bit of money, but it turns out he owes over $100,000. And the worst part is, he used my name for some of the loans without me knowing. How is that possible? He forged my signature. When I married him, I gave him some documents to handle the banking for our joint account. I never thought he'd use them for this. Do you have any way to prove you didn't know? I don't know. It's all so complicated. The banks say that since we were married, I'm responsible for all his debts anyway. And the divorce? I don't even know where Edward is now. He just disappeared. His phone is disconnected. He doesn't answer emails. Nothing. It's as if he vanished. Perfect. Edward had run away like the rat he had always been, leaving Angela to face the consequences of her actions alone. In a way, he had done me a favor. Now my daughter was experiencing exactly what I had felt when he abandoned me. Betrayal by someone she had completely trusted. I'm so sorry, honey. I didn't know things were so bad. I didn't either, Mom. I thought Edward loved me, that we were going to build something together, but it turns out I was just an easy way for him to get money and documents. Angela started to cry again. How could I have been so stupid? How did I not realize who he really was? It was tempting to tell her that I had seen the signs from the beginning, that I had tried to warn her that Edward never seemed trustworthy, but that would have broken my facade as a compassionate and vulnerable mother. Love can be blinding sometimes, honey. Don't blame yourself. But Mom, I didn't just ruin my life. I ruined yours too. I treated you horribly. I took your house, your truck, your things, and all to give to a man who abandoned me at the first opportunity. Now we're two poor women trying to survive because of me. It's in the past, Angela. We'll be okay. No, it's not. Now we're both in trouble because of my mistakes. You lost everything Dad left you, and I lost my marriage and my future. We're two poor women trying to survive. If she only knew, I thought, that at this very moment I had more money than she could possibly imagine, that I was the owner of the building where she lived, that I could solve all her problems with a single phone call. But it wasn't time yet. The next day, we went to the bank. Angela was nervous, hopeful. I maintained my act as a confused widow who didn't understand much about finance. The bank employee led us to the safety deposit boxes, verified my ID, and opened box number 247. Inside were jewels, many jewels, rings, necklaces, bracelets, earrings. I recognized some pieces as heirlooms from Robert's family. Others were completely new to me. There was also a letter explaining the origin of each piece and its approximate value. Angela gasped. Mom, this must be worth a fortune. You think so? Yes. Look at this emerald and this pearl necklace. Mom, Dad saved a treasure here. According to Robert's letter, the jewels were worth approximately $200,000. It was a significant amount, but it was nothing compared to the rest of my assets. It was like finding a few coins under the sofa when you have $1 million in the bank. What do we do with this, Mom? I don't know, honey. They're family memories. But Mom, we could sell some of the pieces. With this money, you could get your beach house back, and I could pay off some of Edward's debts. There it was again. Even when she found something valuable, Angela's first reaction was to think about how to use it to solve the problems Edward had created. She hadn't learned a thing yet. Are you sure you want to use your father's inheritance to pay Edward's debts? What other option do I have, Mom? If I don't pay something soon, the banks are going to foreclose on everything I have, and technically, I don't own anything. Everything was in Edward's name. Think carefully, honey. Once you sell these jewels, you won't be able to get them back. I know, but what else can I do? I can't get a job with all these legal claims pending. No employer is going to want to hire someone with so many legal problems. We took the jewels home. Angela spread them out on the kitchen table and examined them one by one, calculating which ones she could sell and which she could keep. It was painful to watch her reduce decades of family history to numbers on a spreadsheet. Mom, I think I can get $180,000 for the jewels, she said one afternoon, counting the bills on the kitchen table. It's less than I expected, but it's enough to pay off the most urgent debts. Are you sure you want to do this? I have no choice. If I don't pay something soon, they'll seize everything. Even this house could be at risk if they prove I have some kind of legal connection to the properties. How ironic the situation was. Angela was worried about losing a house that I owned, paying the debts of a man who had abandoned her with money from jewels that had belonged to the same man who had created the fortune that could save her. And how are you going to decide which debts to pay first? I talked to a free financial advisor at the bank. She told me to prioritize the debts that have real collateral, because those are the ones that can affect property or lead to immediate foreclosure. Angela had matured so much in these few weeks. The woman who had sold my things without consulting me was now carefully investigating every financial decision. The suffering had made her more responsible, but also more fragile. That night, while she was organizing the debt documents on the table, I received a call from Mr. Peterson. "Mrs. Brooks, I have a full report on Edward's debts. The situation is worse than I thought." "How much worse?" "He owes over $200,000 to several banks and also has debts with private lenders. What's more concerning is that he used falsified documents with your daughter's signature for some of these loans. That means Angela is legally responsible." "It's complicated. If we can prove she didn't know, we might be able to get her out of some of the debts. But it's going to be a long and expensive process." "How expensive?" "For a good lawyer specializing in these types of cases, probably $50,000, and there's no guarantee of success." "I understand. And what if she just pays the debts?" "If she has the money, that would be the fastest solution, but I doubt she has access to that amount." "Mr. Peterson, I want you to prepare all the necessary documents to get my daughter out of these debts, but don't tell her anything yet." "You're going to pay, Mrs. Brooks?" "I'm going to do whatever is necessary to protect my daughter, but this has to be handled in a very specific way." When I hung up, I found Angela in the living room, looking at the jewels with a sad expression. She looked lost, like a child who had broken her favorite toy and didn't know how to fix it. "What are you thinking about, honey?" "About Dad. About how disappointed he would be in me if he could see what I did with my life." "Your father loved you very much, Angela. He would understand." "No, Mom. He taught me to be responsible, to value family, not to be selfish, and I did the exact opposite. I abandoned my mother for a man who turned out to be a liar. I sold my family's memories for money. I ruined everything he built." For the first time since she had returned, I heard a genuine regret in her voice. It wasn't just lamenting the consequences of her actions, but a true acknowledgement that she had done something morally wrong. "People make mistakes, honey. The important thing is to learn from them." "But how do I learn from this, Mom? How do I fix the damage I've done?" There was the question I had been waiting for. Angela was finally ready to face the truth about her actions and their consequences, but it wasn't yet time to reveal my final card. First, I had to let her hit rock bottom completely. The next few days were crucial for my plan. Angela decided to sell most of the jewels, keeping only the engagement ring Robert had given me and a small necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. I watched her prepare to go to the jewelry stores, research prices, and negotiate with buyers. It was painful to watch her reduce decades of family history to commercial transactions, but it was necessary for her to understand the real weight of her decisions. "Mom, I got $180,000 for the jewels," she told me one afternoon, counting the bills on the kitchen table. "It's less than I expected, but it's enough to pay off the most urgent debts." "Are you sure you want to do this?" "I have no choice. If I don't pay something soon, they'll foreclose on everything. Even this house could be at risk if they prove I have some kind of legal connection to the properties." How ironic the situation was. Angela was worried about losing a house that I owned, paying the debts of a man who had abandoned her with money from jewels that had belonged to the same man who had created the fortune that could save her. And how are you going to decide which debts to pay first? I talked to a free financial advisor at the bank. She told me to prioritize the debts that have real collateral, because those are the ones that can affect property or lead to immediate foreclosure. Angela had matured so much in these few weeks. The woman who had sold my things without consulting me was now carefully investigating every financial decision. The suffering had made her more responsible, but also more fragile. That night, while she was organizing the debt documents on the table, I received a call from Mr. Peterson. "Mrs. Brooks, I have important news. We managed to locate Edward." "Where is he?" "In Paris, just as your daughter suspected. But here's the interesting part. He's trying to get French residency through a fake marriage with that young woman your daughter mentioned." "A fake marriage?" "Yes. Apparently the girl needs papers and he needs a way to stay in Europe without being deported. But the most important thing is that we found evidence that he deliberately falsified your daughter's documents with the intention of fleeing the country. That means Angela can get out of the debts." "With this evidence, yes. We can prove fraud and coercion. Your daughter won't have to pay anything for what Edward did behind her back." It was perfect. I had a way to save Angela from all her debts legally, without her suspecting that I had the money to do it. "Mr. Peterson, I want you to start the legal process immediately. Don't tell my daughter anything yet. I want the process to be completely finished before I tell her. I don't want to give her false hope." "Understood. This will take about 3 weeks, maybe a month." "Perfect." When I hung up, Angela looked at me with curiosity. "Who was that, Mom?" "A lady who was asking about Mrs. Davis, our neighbor on the corner. She had the wrong number." Lying had become easy. Every day that passed, I felt more comfortable with this double life I was leading. On one hand, I was the poor, abandoned mother Angela believed me to be. On the other, I was a wealthy woman, silently orchestrating my daughter's salvation and education. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Angela struggle with decisions she never had to make. How to stretch money for food, how to negotiate with creditors, how to look for a job when your credit history is ruined. It was a cruel but necessary education. "Mom, I went to 3 job interviews today," she told me one evening, coming home with swollen feet and a tired face. 2 of them told me they can't hire me because of the pending legal problems. The 3rd one offered me a part-time job cleaning offices at night. "Are you going to take it?" "I have no choice. It pays very little, but it's better than nothing, and I can work at night so I can keep looking for something better during the day." Seeing my daughter, who had lived a comfortable life for over 40 years, preparing to clean offices at night broke my heart, but it also filled me with pride. She was finally facing reality without expecting someone else to solve her problems. "Are you sure you can handle so much physical work?" "I'll have to learn. I can't keep being a burden to you, Mom. It's bad enough that you're letting me live here for free." "This is your home, Angela." "No, Mom. This is your home. And I'm here because of your generosity, but I'm not going to take advantage of it forever." One night, while Angela was on her first cleaning shift, Aurora came to visit. She sat in the kitchen with me, drinking tea and looking at the family photos on the walls. "Antonia, I have to ask you something. Did you know Angela was going to come back in these conditions?" "What do you mean?" "Well, when she left, she seemed so sure of herself, so arrogant. She talked about the great life she was going to have in Europe, about how successful Edward was, and now she's back, completely broken, working a cleaning job, living with you again. Life takes many turns, Aurora." "Yes, but there's something else. I've been watching Angela these days, and she looks different. Not just sad, but humble, as if she learned something important." Aurora had always been very perceptive. "What do you think she learned?" "I think she learned the value of the things she had taken for granted, like having a mother who loves her unconditionally." "Maybe, Aurora. Can I tell you something? When Angela left and treated you so badly, many of us thought you would never forgive her. But here you are, taking care of her again, giving her a home when she has nowhere to go. She's my daughter, Aurora." "Yes, but not every mother would do what you're doing, especially after being treated the way you were treated." If Aurora only knew the complete truth, that I had the power to solve all of Angela's problems, but was choosing to let her suffer a little longer so she would learn the full lesson. "Do you think I'm doing the right thing?" "I think you're doing what a good mother would do, But I also think Angela needs to fully understand what she lost when she abandoned you. What do you mean? I think she needs to value you not just as the mother who rescues her when she's in trouble, but as the strong woman who built a stable life for 45 years. She needs to respect you, not just need you. Aurora had hit the nail on the head. That was exactly the point of my entire plan. I didn't want Angela to come back to me out of desperation. I wanted her to come back out of genuine respect and mature love. And how do you think that can happen? I think it's already happening. I've seen her these past few days, Antonia. The way she talks to you now is completely different. She's no longer the daughter who gives you orders or treats you like a burden. Now she's a grown woman who is genuinely grateful to have a mother like you. That night, when Angela returned from her job, I saw her arrive tired, but with a new dignity. She had earned those few dollars with her own effort, and that meant something to her. "How was your first day?" "Hard, but not as bad as I thought. The other ladies who work there helped me a lot. One of them, Mrs. Johnson, taught me tricks to clean more efficiently." "Mrs. Johnson?" "Yes. She's 60 years old and has been cleaning offices for 20 years. She told me she started after her husband left her with 3 small children. She says it's not the job she dreamed of, but that it gave her independence and dignity." "She sounds like a wise woman." "She is. She said something that made me think a lot. She told me there are 2 types of people who end up doing this job. The ones who are there because they never had opportunities, and the ones who are there because they ruined the opportunities they did have. She asked me which group I was in." "And what did you tell her?" "I told her the truth, that I had all the opportunities in the world, a family that loved me, a stable home, an inheritance, and that I ruined it all by following a worthless man." "What did she say?" "She laughed and said, 'Well, honey, then at least you know exactly why you're here. That puts you 1 step ahead of most people.'" Angela poured herself a glass of water and sat with me at the table. "Mom, I want you to know something. These past few weeks have been the hardest of my life, but also the most important." "Why?" "Because I finally understand what really matters. It's not money. It's not living in the most luxurious apartment. It's not impressing people. It's having people who genuinely love you, who are there when everything falls apart." "Angela, no, let me finish. You have every right to hate me for what I did to you. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I took everything Dad left you. I treated you as if you were a nuisance. And now I'm here again, expecting you to forgive me and take care of me. I already forgave you, honey. But I haven't forgiven myself. And I won't until I prove that I've truly changed, that I've learned from my mistakes." Mr. Peterson called me the next morning. "Mrs. Brooks, I have excellent news. The legal process is almost complete. We can get your daughter out of all of Edward's debts." It was time. After weeks of watching Angela struggle, work, and reflect on her mistakes, the moment had finally arrived to show her that she had never been alone, that she had always had someone quietly watching over her. "Mr. Peterson, I want you to organize a meeting. It's time for my daughter to know the whole truth." Mr. Peterson arranged the meeting for Friday morning at his office. I told Angela that I had made an appointment with a lawyer who could help her with her legal problems, but I didn't explain the details. She agreed to come, although she was nervous about the cost of the consultation. "Mom, I don't have money to pay a lawyer. I barely have enough to cover basic expenses." "Don't worry about that now, honey. Let's just hear what he has to say." We arrived at Mr. Peterson's office on time. Angela had dressed in her best clothes, which now looked a little big on her thinner body. She was nervous, wringing her hands, expecting another piece of bad news on her endless list of problems. Mr. Peterson greeted us with his usual professional smile. "Mrs. Brooks, Miss Brooks, thank you for coming." "Thank you for seeing us," Angela replied. "Although I should warn you that my financial situation is very complicated, and I probably can't afford high fees." "That's exactly what we're going to talk about," Mr. Peterson said, exchanging a look with me. But first, I need you to review these documents." Mr. Peterson handed Angela a thick folder. She opened it and began to read, her expression gradually changing from confusion to surprise. "I don't understand. These documents say that Edward forged my signature, that there is evidence of fraud, that I am not responsible for the debts." "That's right. We have been investigating your case for the past few weeks. We found enough evidence to prove that you were a victim of identity fraud." "But how is that possible? Who paid for this investigation? I don't have money for this." Mr. Peterson looked at me. It was my moment. "Angela, there's something I need to tell you." "What, Mom?" I took a deep breath. After weeks of acting, I was finally going to reveal the truth. "Your father left me more than you knew, much more." "What do you mean?" "Mr. Peterson, show her the other documents." Mr. Peterson took out a second folder and handed it to Angela. This time, the documents were the property deeds, the bank statements, the investment certificates, the entire fortune Robert had built in secret. Angela read in silence for several minutes. Her face went through a complete range of emotions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally, comprehension. "Mom, this says you are the owner of the building where I lived." "Yes, and that you have other properties, bank accounts, investments?" "Yes, this means that when I sold the beach house, it was my house, and the sale was fraudulent." "I already got it back." Angela stared at the papers, trying to process the information. "How long have you known this?" "Since the day you called me from the doctor's office." "You knew all this when I came back from Europe asking for help?" "Yes." "You knew you could solve all my problems when you saw me crying every night?" "Yes." There was a long, tense silence. Angela closed the folders and looked directly into my eyes. "Why, Mom? Why did you let me suffer when you could have helped me?" This was the question I had been waiting for weeks. "Because you needed to learn something you couldn't learn any other way." "What?" "You needed to learn the value of the things you had lost, the value of family, of respect, of responsibility. When you abandoned me, it wasn't just money you took from me. It was dignity, it was love, it was trust." Angela started to cry, but they weren't tears of self-pity, like the ones she had shed during these weeks. They were tears of deep understanding. "I abandoned you when you needed me most." "Yes." "I treated you like garbage." "Yes." "And you saved me anyway." "Yes, but not in the way you expected. I didn't save you by giving you money so you could keep making the same mistakes. I saved you by letting you hit rock bottom so you could learn to save yourself." Mr. Peterson discreetly intervened. "Miss Brooks, your mother has paid all the legal expenses to free you from Edward's debts. She has also recovered all the properties that were sold fraudulently. You are completely free of legal problems." "And the cleaning job I got?" "You can quit if you want," I said, "but I hope you don't." "Why?" "Because that job is teaching you something you never learned when everything was easy. It's teaching you the value of your own effort, the dignity of honest work, the importance of valuing every dollar you earn." Angela wiped her tears and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't the look of a daughter who needs her mother, but the look of a grown woman who respects another woman. "Do you forgive me, Mom?" "I forgave you a long time ago, honey. The question is, can you forgive yourself?" "I don't know if I can. I did unforgivable things." "People make mistakes, Angela. The important thing is what we do after we recognize those mistakes." Mr. Peterson left us alone in his office for a few minutes. Angela and I sat in silence, processing everything that had happened. "Mom, I want you to know something. Even if you didn't have all this money, even if you were really the poor widow I thought you were, I would have learned the same lesson." "What lesson?" "That there is nothing more valuable than having someone who loves you unconditionally. During these past few weeks, the only thing that kept me sane was knowing I had a home with you, that no matter how much I had ruined my life, you were still my mother. That will never change, Angela." "I know, but I also know that I can never take that love for granted again. I have to earn it every day, with respect, with gratitude, with actions, not just words. We left Mr. Peterson's office with a completely new relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by blood and habit. We were two grown women who had chosen each other after going through the most difficult test imaginable. The following weeks were about rebuilding, but not the kind Angela expected. Even though she now knew I had enough resources to solve all her problems, she decided to keep her night cleaning job. "Mom, I need to finish what I started," she told me one afternoon as she was getting ready for work. "I can't just go back to a comfortable life as if nothing happened." "Are you sure? You don't have to punish yourself forever." "It's not a punishment. It's a way of remembering who I was and who I want to be now." I watched her put on her work uniform, something unthinkable a few months ago when she lived in the luxury condo with Edward. But there was something different in her posture, in the way she moved. She was no longer the broken woman who had arrived crying at my door. She was someone who had found dignity in honest work. Aurora came to visit me that afternoon, as she had done every few days since Angela had returned. "Antonia, there are some very strange rumors going around the neighborhood." "What kind of rumors?" "People are saying that you're not as poor as we all thought. Someone saw Angela leaving a very elegant lawyer's office downtown, and then they saw her paying off all her debts at the bank. People talk a lot, Aurora." "Yes, but they're also saying you got your beach house back and that somehow you managed to solve all of Angela's legal problems. That costs a lot of money, Antonia." Aurora knew me too well to fool her for long. "What do you want to know exactly?" "I want to know if my friend of 40 years has been lying to me about her situation." I poured myself a cup of tea and sat across from her. It was time to be honest with someone else. "Robert left me more than anyone knew, Aurora. Much more." "How much more?" "Enough so that Angela and I never have to worry about money again." Aurora was silent for a moment, processing the information. "And why did you pretend to be poor all these months?" "Because I needed Angela to learn something she couldn't learn any other way." I told her the whole story: Angela's cruel phone call, my plan of silent revenge, the weeks of watching her hit rock bottom, and finally, the revelation in Mr. Peterson's office. "Antonia, that is brilliant and terrible at the same time." "Terrible?" "Yes, because you let your own daughter suffer when you could have helped her immediately. But also brilliant, because I understand why you did it." "You do?" "Yes. Angela needed to learn the value of the things she had lost. If you had simply given her money to solve her problems, she would have learned that there's always someone who will rescue her from the consequences of her bad decisions." "Exactly. But Antonia, didn't it hurt you to see her suffer?" "Every day. Every night I saw her crying. Every morning I saw her get up to go to work, tired and defeated. But I knew that if I rescued her too soon, she wouldn't have learned the full lesson." "And do you think she learned it?" "Look for yourself. Angela knows that she now has access to enough money to live comfortably, but she chose to keep her job. She knows she can move to a better place, but she decided to stay here with me. She knows she doesn't have to worry about the debts, but she's using her own savings to help other women in similar situations." "She's helping other women?" "Yes. She became friends with the ladies she works with and is using some of the money she earned cleaning offices to help a coworker who is having trouble paying for her son's daycare." Aurora smiled. "That's not the Angela who went to Europe." "No, she's not. This Angela understands that money is a tool, not a goal. She understands that dignity comes from work and respect, not from material possessions." That night, when Angela returned from work, she found me reading in the living room. "Mom, I have to tell you something. Today, Mrs. Johnson asked me if I was the daughter of the rich lady from the north side of town." "What did you tell her?" "I said yes, that you have enough money for me not to have to work." "And do you know what she asked me next?" "What?" "She asked me why I was still working. So I explained that it was because I need to prove to myself that I can stand on my own 2 feet. "And what did she say?" She laughed and said, "Honey, that's the difference between being rich and acting rich. Your mom taught you how to be truly rich. Mrs. Johnson is very wise. She is, and she made me understand something important. It's not about the money you have, but about how you use it and how you relate to it. Angela sat down with me on the sofa. Mom, I want you to know that I've made a decision. I'm going to keep living here with you, but not as a daughter who has come back home to her parents. I want to stay here as a grown woman who chooses to share her life with her mother. What's the difference? The difference is that I'm going to pay my share of the expenses. I'm going to contribute to the upkeep of the house, and I'm going to treat this relationship as a partnership between two independent women who love and respect each other. Angela, you don't need to. Yes, I do, Mom. I need our relationship to be different from what it was before. Before, I was a daughter who took her mother's love and care for granted. Now, I want to be a grown woman who values and takes care of the most important relationship in her life. And your job? I'm going to keep working, but not necessarily cleaning offices forever. I want to go back to school. I want to prepare myself to do something more meaningful with my life, but I want to do it step by step, earning every opportunity. Do you have any idea what you want to study? Yes, I want to study social work. These past few weeks have taught me how many people are going through difficult situations without having anyone to support them. I want to use the resources we have to help other women who are going through what I went through. It was perfect. Angela had not only learned to value what she had, but she had found a way to use her experience for something constructive. And what about Edward? Mr. Peterson told me he was arrested in France for the fraudulent marriage. He's going to be deported soon, but honestly, Mom, I don't care anymore. That part of my life is over. You don't feel any resentment? No. Edward did me a favor without even knowing it. If he hadn't abandoned and betrayed me, I never would have hit rock bottom. And if I had never hit rock bottom, I never would have learned to truly value what I have. That night, for the first time in months, I went to bed completely at peace. My plan had worked perfectly. Angela had not only learned the lessons she needed to learn, but she had emerged from the experience as a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate person. Robert would have been so proud. 6 months later, our life had found a new balance that neither of us could have imagined before. Angela finished her social work studies with excellent grades, and I decided to use some of my resources to establish a foundation to help women in situations of domestic violence and financial abandonment. Mom, the letter from the university arrived, Angela said one morning, coming into the kitchen with an envelope in her hands. I was accepted into the master's program. I start next semester. But Mom, I want you to know I'm going to pay for it with my own savings. I've been saving money from my job at the city. The salary isn't high, but she had learned to live with the essentials and to value every dollar she earned. Are you sure? We can easily afford the master's program. I know, but I need to do it on my own. It's part of who I am now. Aurora came to visit that afternoon, as she had done every Friday for the past few months. She had become a confidant to both of us, watching our transformation with fascination. Antonia, I have to confess something, she said, pouring herself a second cup of tea. At first, I thought you were very cruel to Angela. And what do you think now? Now I think you were the wisest mother I've ever known. Look at your daughter. Really look at her. It was true. The Angela who was in the living room studying for her exams was completely different from the one who had left for Europe months ago. This Angela had a serenity that came from within, a confidence that was based on her own achievements, not on material possessions. Did you know I saw Angela at the grocery store yesterday, buying vegetables for a family she's helping through her job? She hadn't told me, and when I asked her why she was using her own money instead of the government budget, she told me that some things can't be measured in official budgets. That night, Angela and I had dinner on the porch. Something that had become a tradition. It was our time to talk about the day, plan for the future, and simply enjoy each other's company. Mom, I received a very strange letter today, she said, cutting her salad. From whom? From Edward. My muscles tensed. Edward? He wrote to you? From where? From prison in France. Apparently he was sentenced to 2 years for marriage fraud. In the letter, he says he regrets everything he did and wants to ask for my forgiveness. And how do you feel about it? Honestly, I don't feel anything. No anger, no sadness, no desire for revenge. It's as if that part of my life happened decades ago, not months ago. Are you going to write back? No. Not because I hate him, but because there's nothing to say. That Angela who married him no longer exists. This Angela has nothing to talk to him about. I was impressed by the maturity in her voice. The woman sitting across from me had developed an inner strength that came from hitting rock bottom and getting up on her own. Do you know what this whole experience taught me, Mom? What? That true love isn't the one that tells you what you want to hear. True love is the one that teaches you what you need to learn, even when it hurts. It's a difficult lesson to learn, but it's a necessary one. Edward told me what I wanted to hear. He made me feel special. He convinced me that I deserved a life of luxury without effort. You taught me that true wealth comes from hard work, respect, and genuine relationships. That night, after Angela went to her room to study, I sat on the porch alone, looking at the stars and thinking about Robert. I had promised him I would take care of our daughter, and I finally felt I had fulfilled that promise in the right way. I hadn't taken care of her by giving her money when she needed it. I had taken care of her by teaching her to take care of herself. I hadn't saved her by solving her problems. I had saved her by allowing her to learn to solve them on her own. The next day was Sunday, and we had planned to visit the beach house together for the first time since I had gotten it back. Angela hadn't wanted to go before, saying she needed time to process everything that had happened. "Are you ready?" I asked her as we got into the truck. "I think so." The trip was silent, but comfortable. When we arrived, Angela stood for a moment in the truck, looking at the house where we had spent so many family summers. "It looks exactly the same," she said finally. "Some things don't change, but others do. I am not the same person who sold this house." We went in together. The house was clean and tidy, exactly as Robert and I had kept it for years. Angela walked through each room, touching the furniture and looking at the family photos that hung on the walls. "Mom, I want to apologize." "You already apologized, honey." "No. I want to apologize specifically for this house, not just for selling it, but for reducing all our family memories to a commercial transaction. It's forgiven. This house represents 40 years of family summers, of birthdays, of Christmases. Dad built that porch with his own hands. You planted that garden. I learned to swim at that beach, and I turned it all into money to fund the adventure of a worthless man." She sat on the sofa where Robert used to read on Sunday mornings. "Do you know what hurts me the most?" "What?" "That when I sold it, I didn't feel anything. It was just another property. Now, being here again, I can feel Dad in every corner. I can hear his laughter, smell his morning coffee, see his reading glasses on the table. He is here, Angela. He has always been here." "I know. And I also know that he is proud of how you handled all of this." We spent the whole day at the house, cooking together, cleaning, and fixing small details. It was like a ritual of reconnection, not just with the place, but with the values that place represented. When the sun began to set, we sat on the porch Robert had built, looking at the ocean. "Mom, I have a proposal." "What is it?" "I want us to turn this house into a temporary shelter for women who are leaving situations of domestic violence, a place where they can stay while they rebuild their lives." It was the perfect proposal. Robert would have loved the idea that his beach house would serve to help other families. "I think that's a beautiful idea, honey. We can use some of the foundation's resources to maintain it, and I can oversee the program through my job." "Are you sure you want to turn our family sanctuary into that, Mom?" "The best sanctuaries are the ones that are shared. Dad always said that a house isn't truly a home until it opens its doors to other people who need love." He was right. Robert had always been generous with our home, inviting relatives, friends, and neighbors who needed a place to stay. We returned home that night with a new project and a completely renewed relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by obligation or need. We were two women who had consciously chosen to build a life together based on love, respect, and a common purpose. That night, before falling asleep, I spoke to Robert in silence. We did it, my love. Our daughter finally understood what truly matters. And for the first time since his death, I felt he answered me. I always knew you would. You're both stronger than you think. Justice had arrived not as revenge, but as education, not as punishment, but as transformation. And in the end, we had both gained something much more valuable than money. We had gained an authentic relationship built on a solid foundation that no future crisis could destroy. Did you like my story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.